Have you ever caught yourself mid-conversation and realized you've started to adopt the other person's accent? Or maybe you've started using a hand gesture you've only ever seen a coworker use. For a split second, you might have a mini identity crisis. Are you just a social chameleon, a poser with no real personality of your own? Well, the answer is far more fascinating and deeply rooted in the very wiring of your brain. That feeling of accidentally borrowing someone's mannerisms isn't a glitch, it's a feature. Your brain has complex networks that predispose you to imitate the people around you. It's a primal, powerful, and often unconscious drive that scientists are now beginning to fully understand. This isn't just about fitting in. It's a deeply human way of building connection. So, if you've ever wondered why you unconsciously copy others, you're about to find out that your brain is built to do exactly that. But it goes deeper than just picking up a new phrase. Think about the last time you were with someone who was visibly anxious, tapping their foot, or speaking quickly. Did you feel a flutter of that same anxiety yourself, even if you had no reason to be stressed? Now think of a friend who is effortlessly cheerful. Do you find your own mood lifting in their presence? And no, you're not just imagining it. This is social contagion in action, and it's happening to you all day, every day, often without your conscious permission. It's an ancient mechanism that has shaped human society for millennia. But in our modern world, this same mechanism is being amplified in ways our ancestors could never have imagined. In 1999, social psychologists Tanya Chartrand and John Bargh put a name to this everyday phenomenon: the chameleon effect. They described it as the non-conscious mimicry of postures, mannerisms, and facial expressions of the people we're talking to. Their main study was elegantly simple. They had participants chat with a researcher who was in on the experiment. In some sessions, the researcher would subtly mimic the participants' behavior, like crossing their legs or touching their face a few seconds after the participant did. In other sessions, they deliberately avoided mimicry. The results were remarkable. When participants were subtly mimicked, they rated the interaction as smoother and reported liking the researcher significantly more. The crucial part? They had no idea they were being copied. The effect was automatic and invisible, yet it powerfully shaped their social connection. This mimicry acts as a form of social glue, a nonverbal signal that says, "I'm like you, we're on the same page." It builds rapport without ever needing a single word. Of course, it's not a simple switch that guarantees liking in every situation. Later research has shown the strength of the effect can vary depending on the context and the people involved. For example, some studies suggest that people who are more empathetic, particularly those skilled at taking on another's perspective, may show the chameleon effect more strongly. This suggests our tendency to mimic isn't just a mindless copy-paste function. It's deeply tied to our ability to connect with and understand others. So, what's happening in the brain to make this all possible? The answer, at least in part, might lie with one of the most exciting and debated discoveries in modern neuroscience: mirror neurons. In the early 1990s, a team of scientists in Parma, Italy, led by Giacomo Rizzolatti, was studying the brains of macaque monkeys. They were monitoring neurons in the premotor cortex, a region involved in planning and executing actions. They found specific neurons that fired when a monkey reached for a peanut. No surprise there. The big surprise came when the monkey watched a researcher perform the same action, like grasping a piece of fruit. The monkey's brain monitor lit up. The very same neurons that fired when the monkey itself performed the action were now firing just from watching someone else do it. It was as if the monkey's brain was simulating the action, creating an internal experience of what it was observing. They dubbed these mirror neurons. While we can't stick electrodes in human brains the same way, neuroimaging studies have shown that humans have a sophisticated network that works in a similar way, often called a mirror system. There is still a lot of debate in the scientific community about the exact role and even the existence of a dedicated mirror neuron system in humans. However, brain regions like the premotor cortex do activate both when we perform an action and when we watch someone else perform that same action. This system may act as a kind of neural bridge between you and others. It's important to be clear, mirror neurons are not the sole explanation for all social behavior. They are part of a much larger, more complex story. But they provide a plausible biological starting point for how imitation and even empathy can feel so automatic. When you see someone smile, your brain's mirroring systems may begin to simulate the physical act of smiling, which in turn can help you feel a hint of their joy. It's a pre-reflective, embodied response to the people around us. This neural mirroring isn't limited to physical actions. It seems to extend to our feelings. This is the heart of emotional contagion, the tendency to absorb and reflect the emotions of those around you. Research has shown that moods, both good and bad, can spread through social networks. One study even showed that when a person expressed happiness, that feeling could ripple outwards, affecting their friends and their friends' friends. This has real-world consequences. Living with a cheerful roommate can genuinely lift your spirits, while being consistently around someone who is deeply stressed can leave you feeling drained yourself. Some research on stress contagion has found that observing a partner who is stressed can lead to a measurable increase in the observer's own cortisol, the body's stress hormone. While it's not as simple as catching a mood like a cold, many other factors are at play. The influence is undeniable. This can happen because our brains unconsciously mimic the subtle facial expressions and body language associated with an emotion. Seeing a friend's frown can trigger a micro-expression of a frown on our own face, which then sends feedback to our brain that helps us share in that feeling of sadness. It's a foundational part of empathy, allowing us to understand what others are feeling not by thinking about it, but by feeling it with them, at least to a small degree. This process is so fundamental that it can happen even between people who disagree, suggesting that mimicry is a basic tool for understanding another's perspective, even if you don't share it. For most of human history, social contagion was limited by physical proximity. You could only be influenced by the people you could see and hear. That has all changed. Social media platforms have become massive, global engines for emotional and behavioral transfer. Instead of interacting with a handful of people in a day, we're now exposed to the curated emotional expressions of thousands. And it turns out, you don't need face-to-face interaction for emotions to spread. A famous and controversial experiment conducted on Facebook in 2014 showed this on a massive scale. For 1 week, researchers manipulated the news feeds of nearly 700,000 users. Some users saw fewer positive posts, while others saw fewer negative ones. The results showed that the emotions people were exposed to online influenced their own posts. When positive posts were reduced, users produced fewer positive posts and more negative ones. When negative posts were reduced, the opposite happened. The measured effect was very small. and the study faced significant ethical criticism for manipulating people's feeds without their explicit consent, but it provided some of the first experimental evidence for large-scale emotional contagion online. We see how this plays out constantly. Moral outrage, anxiety, and joy can spread like wildfire online, often amplified by algorithms designed to promote engagement. It's a reasonable interpretation that these platforms have found a way to tap into, and perhaps hijack, our ancient social wiring for affiliation and mimicry, creating feedback loops that spread trends, slang, and even collective moods at an incredible speed. So, the next time you catch yourself using a friend's turn of phrase or mirroring a colleague's posture, don't see it as a loss of identity. Think of it as a testament to the deeply social nature of your brain. The science of social contagion reveals that we are not isolated individuals. We are fundamentally interconnected with a deep-seated tendency to reflect, share, and understand one another. This ancient mechanism is a double-edged sword. It's the social glue that can foster empathy, rapport, and harmony. It allows us to learn, connect, and build societies, but it also makes us vulnerable to negative emotional spirals and the pressures of mass conformity, especially in our hyper-connected world. Understanding this doesn't give you immunity, but it does give you awareness. It allows you to see the invisible currents that shape your interactions and feelings. It reframes imitation not as a weakness, but as a core part of the human experience, the biological echo of our profound and primal need to belong. The real challenge is learning to navigate this world of echoes, to consciously choose which signals to amplify and which to let fade away. But this is a shared experience. We all have that one word or quirk we've picked up from someone else. What's yours? Share a story in the comments below about a mannerism, phrase, or even a feeling you've caught from someone in your life. I'm genuinely curious to hear how the chameleon effect has shown up for you.